Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cooking with Robyn. I'm Robyn Gray, Director of Camrose Public Library. So in our world of COVID, there is potentially a lot of downtime, which also means a lot of snacking time. So I wanted to talk about one of my favorite snacks today, which is popcorn. So if you're looking for an alternative to the usual chips and dip, or if your version of popcorn until now has been the little packets with butter and salt that you put in the microwave and they're already pre-made and you just have to let it pop and then you're done, I wanted to introduce you to the world of popping your own corn. A lot of people think that that version can be really plain, but the truth is that it's way cheaper, and once you've popped the corn, you can add your own seasonings to make it taste like whatever you want, and you have that much more control over what has gone into the popcorn. So you can get popping corn from pretty much anywhere. I got mine today from Nutter's, which is in downtown Camrose. I usually like to go for the jumbo size popping corn for kernels. You can get it at Bulk Barn, you can get it at any old grocery store pretty much, and yeah, usually way cheaper than the pre-packaged stuff. So there's lots of different types of popcorn makers out there. So sometimes when you think of a popcorn maker, you think of the movie theater style, where you have the big glass box and the gray thing in the top where you put your kernels and then it flows over. I've never had one of those. I feel like it'd be a lot of cleaning, but at the same time, I feel like it'd be really cool and you can make whatever type of popcorn you wanted. For a while, I did have one of those that had the black base and then the thing rotated and it would pop the kernels into a big bowl. That one was nice, but it also meant a lot of cleaning, especially because you added oil to the bowl. So every time you made it, you had to clean off the oil. One of my favorites has been this air popper. So it's nice and easy to clean. Kind of you clean the inside once when you first get it, but because it's just air popping, there's no other ingredients that go into it. You wash this part every once in a while, it comes off. The one problem with air poppers is that sometimes when it shoots it out at the bowl, it can lead other kernels to pop out sometimes, but that depends. You kind of have to keep an eye on it, and as long as you haven't tried to pop a crazy amount all at once, you should be totally fine. Another one I have started enjoying when I'm making popcorn just for myself as opposed to for 10 people. I got this at Bulk Barn. So it's it just basically looks like a red cup. On the inside there's a little, well, you can see that indent in there. So basically you fill the kernels just so they're up to the indent, and then you put the lid on and you put it in the microwave for about 2 minutes, and as long as you haven't overfilled it, it's really good. Just the popcorn fills up the container, and then you can dump it out and add your seasonings. And of course, the one thing is that you don't actually have to buy a popper. You can usually use a big soup pan, stock pan, to make your own. So about a tablespoon and a half of a really high heating oil, like either coconut oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil, something that can take high heats, as opposed to olive oil, which has a low smoke point. So you spread that around on the bottom and you heat it up to about medium heat. And to test and see if it's ready, you can add 1 or 2 kernels, and once they have popped, then it's ready and you can add the rest. So I guess to make about 8 cups of popped popcorn, you can add half a cup of the kernels. So basically, once you're ready to add them all in, you put them in and you close the lid, and then you have to shake it every few minutes. So kind of holding it like this, and making sure it's low enough over the stovetop so that it's still getting the heat, but also shaking it so that all of the kernels are getting that exposure. And a glass lid can be handy because you can keep an eye on the popcorn and make sure that it's not burning. But of course, if you can smell burning, then it's probably time to take it off the heat. If it's usually kind of more than a few seconds in between pops, then that also means that it's done. Okay, so today we are going to work on a savory popcorn recipe first. So I'm going to use this little red thing that I had pointed out earlier, and I'm going to fill it up with about half of a cup of kernels. Put the lid on. And microwave that for 2 minutes. So the seasonings, you can really change them up based on what you like, based on what your favorites are. So I tend to add about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I don't recommend adding any more than that, just because salt, you can always add more if you want more of a salty flavor, but you can't take it away. And I feel like a little salt goes a long way. That's especially for kettle corn. A lot of people will think, oh, it's sweet and salty if it's kettle corn, but in reality, it just takes a little sprinkle to do the trick. So my favorite is, I like to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt, as well as 1 teaspoon of basil, 1 teaspoon of dill, and 2 teaspoons of nutritional yeast. So for those of you who haven't heard of nutritional yeast, nooch, as it's otherwise known, it has a really unfortunate name, but it's really delicious. So it's basically a deactivated yeast. Here's what it looks like. So when you add it to things, it's not going to expand the way that bread does. It has sort of a nutty, cheesy taste, and it's really high in vitamin B12. So I really recommend nutritional yeast. You give it a try. So you can find it at a lot of health food stores, such as Nutters, such as Bulk Barn. You can potentially find it at grocery stores too. I like that when I go to a health food store and ask where it is, people know what I'm talking about instead of just saying the what kind of yeast. But that's just my experience. Anyway, so I'm just going to wait for the popcorn to be done. So it should be about 2 minutes. You'll be able to hear when it stops popping quite so often. So when there's a few seconds that go between each pop. With this little red one, you have to really be careful you don't overfill it, because otherwise it'll get kind of all scrunched up and then burn. But like I said, it's handiest if you're making popcorn for 1 or 2 people. Okay. So the biggest thing when you think of adding butter to popcorn or whatever, the biggest thing is having something that will let the seasonings stick. So either melting butter, coconut oil is an option, 3 tablespoons of coconut oil that you melt, canola oil, olive oil. My personal favorite, being from Camrose, is Vine Station butter-infused olive oil. So I love this stuff. I feel like it's pretty nutritious and it adds kind of the indulgent flavor of butter without entirely being butter. So calls for about 1.5 tablespoons. Like that's usually about the standard, but you can just drizzle on as much as you like and then kind of shake it around so that everything gets coated. And then you add the herbs and spices that we talked about earlier. And you mix it all up. You can also add some garlic powder as well, about a teaspoon. But you can really taste it. It's delicious. Garlic powder is delicious, but everyone will be able to smell it on you, just so you know. Anyway, so that's my favorite savory recipe. There are tons of great sweet popcorn recipes out there. So I wanted to list one of my absolute favorite sweet ones, share that with you. So about 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. So if you are doing the method where you put it in the soup pan and you shake it around, you can add the coconut oil then. Since I do the air popping, I just mixed the oil right in a little bowl, melted it, stirred it around. Okay, so I melted 3 tablespoons of coconut oil and put it in a small bowl, and then added 2 teaspoons of cayenne, so to just give it a little bit of a kick. 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of salt again, and 1/8 teaspoon of paprika, so just a little sprinkle of paprika, and 2 teaspoons of maple syrup. I found that really delicious. I would probably make it for about 4 cups of popcorn instead of 8, so basically 1/4 cup of popping corn instead of 1/2 cup. Just to make sure that the seasonings go a little farther, but oh, it was really delicious. I really highly recommend it. I mentioned kettle corn earlier, so if you are making popcorn with the soup pan, then you can add the sugar kind of at the same time that you add the oil, and then pop the kernels right in that sugar. So it doesn't work as well for air popping, but a few of those other types of poppers that exist out there, that's totally an option. So basically mixing it right in with the sugar and the oil and the kernels, and then adding a little bit of salt on top of that, and potentially cinnamon, because cinnamon and popcorn are a really good combination. Another option is to make your own caramel corn. So in that case, just air popping, pop however much popcorn at first, so potentially up to 10 cups. and then in a small saucepan making the sauce for the caramel corn. So one recipe that I like to make is over medium heat, you melt 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, 1/4 cup of almond butter, 1/4 cup of maple syrup, 1/2 teaspoon vanilla, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So then you mix that all up until it's a nice melty, smooth thing, and then you pour it over the popped corn, spread it onto a parchment-lined baking sheet, and bake at 250 for about 20 minutes, and after the first 10 minutes, stir it around. And then let it cool, and then it's ready to eat. So, and there's a lot of options out there for caramel corn. I've seen a lot of different ones. So basically, once you've kind of introduced yourself to the world of making your own popcorn, there's a ton of different options. I really recommend trying a savory one as well as trying a sweet one. Like I said, that coconut oil with maple syrup and cinnamon and cayenne is just this magical combination. I highly recommend it. Anyway, so yeah, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great week.